Good evening, welcome to Ten-Tec TV. My name is Scott Robbins, W4PA. I'm the Amateur Radio Product Manager for Ten-Tec Incorporated. And tonight we're going to talk about the Orion II VFO assignments and receiver assignments. One of the things that we do a little bit differently on our rigs, or on the Orion II specifically, than Japanese do, is afford you a lot of flexibility for putting different receivers onto different VFOs, being able to route antennas to each of the receivers, and to be able to listen to separate receivers in separate headphones ears. We are sitting here in front of the Orion II, and I will show you first where we have a matrix of 12 buttons that are used for assignment of the main receiver and transmitter, subreceiver, and both of the VFOs. Those are these buttons right here, the 12 you see here, and you can see some of these are lit LEDs. Right now, the way this rig is set up is essentially basic transceive operation. We have both the main receiver and transmitter and the subreceiver on antenna 1. We have the transmitter and the main receiver on VFO A. We have the subreceiver on VFO B. Now, essentially, VFOs are not receivers, and essentially what we have done is afforded you the flexibility to be able to assign each of the receivers to either of the VFOs, or you can assign both receivers to a single one. For example, this is set up for transceive operation, and right now on VFO A I am tuning the main receiver. On VFO B, you see that moving, this is the subreceiver. If for some reason you wanted to tune both receivers at the same time on the same VFO, you could push this button right here and move the subreceiver over to VFO A. Now what I'm going to do here is hit subreceiver, now on VFO A. You can also see here this indicator says TRS. That means transmit, receive, sub, and you can see as I push this button, the subreceiver moves back down to VFO B. Push it again, or I pushed it to turn it off there. You can turn it off too. You can see it's not shown at all now, and the button is not lit. Push VFO A, and the subreceiver is now assigned up here. Now, what I'm doing at the moment is I am tuning both receivers simultaneously on a single VFO, VFO A. Put this back over here again. You can assign receivers separately to antennas, as I mentioned. Here we can put the subreceiver on antenna 2. You could have an antenna on antenna 1 that you're transceiving with. You could have a separate antenna that you are listening with on antenna 2. If you wanted to use a beverage receive antenna, for example, you could press this. This is a third antenna jack that's on the back for a receive-only antenna. Essentially what you'd be doing here is transmitting on antenna 1. You would be receiving with the receive-only antenna with a beverage. Of course, transceive, it's automatic switching, so as you're transmitting, as you switch back to receive, it goes back to the receive antenna. You can actually, as I said, assign each of these receivers to separate antennas. You can additionally route audio from each receiver to separate headphones. If I push the audio button here, you can see we have choices for headphones: left headphone, right headphone, or speaker. For example, let me show you the icons on the screen. Here you can see that there is a pair of headphones split and a pair of headphones split. What these icons indicate is at the moment you are listening to the main receiver in both ears, and you're listening to the subreceiver in both ears, as we see here, both in both. Now, for example, with left, let's say I change it to main, and I change right to sub, for example. Now you can see what's happened here is the main receiver shows only the left headphone, subreceiver shows only the right headphone. You could, for example, set this radio up for split operation and be listening to one receiver in each ear simultaneously. Why you would want to do that essentially is if you're trying to work a typical de-expedition that's operating split frequency on 20-meter sideband, for example, you'd want to be able to listen to not only the DX transmissions on frequency of interest, but you want to be able to hear the other side of the pileup to see possibly where the DX station is listening. So what we'll do here essentially is set it up for something like that. We've set up the main receiver to be listening on the left headphone. So we'll tune this down to 14195, one of the international DX frequencies. Let's say the DX station is transmitting there and hit to 205. So we'll put it at 202. That's where we want to listen. So now we're listening to 14195 on the main receiver in the left ear, and we're listening to 14202 in the right ear on the subreceiver. Now, if we wanted to transmit on the subreceiver frequency, essentially go split, very easy. All you have to do is push this button right here. You have now put the transmitter on VFO B on the subreceiver frequency, which is right here. So you can see transmit and sub up the band at 14.202, main receiver here at 14.195 listening to the DX station, and this indicator, it says SPL, has come onto the screen to indicate you are now operating split. So let me see, I'll push this again. You'll see the transmitter now moves back to VFO A. The split indicator is gone, indicating you're now transceiving on 14.195. Push this again. And then all you have to do is transmit into the microphone. On different antennas, you could certainly do that. You could, for example, listen to the subreceiver on antenna 2 by pushing this button. You could instead listen on the receive-only antenna. Of course, you could be listening to 3 antennas. You could listen to 2 antennas and have a third one and play at the same time. You could push this button, and then you would be listening to the subreceiver on the pile-up on antenna 2. You'd be listening to the main receiver on the receive antenna, and you could be transmitting on antenna 1 all at the same time. Essentially what we've done with this matrix of 12 buttons is to afford you the most flexibility possible in assigning receivers to VFOs and assigning antennas to those receivers as well. This is one of the features that is unique to the Orion II. There's no other transceiver on the market today that does this quite like we do, and certainly has been a big feature point for us over the last several years that this radio has been available. Thanks very much for watching this presentation tonight on the Orion II and VFO and receiver and antenna assignment flexibility. My name is Scott Robbins. My call is W4PA, and I'm the Amateur Radio Product Manager for Ten-Tec. If you'd like more information on Ten-Tec or any of our products, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-833-7373 or visit our website at www.tentec.com. Thanks very much, in 73.